Hello YouTube! Welcome to Voice Breakdown, the show where we teach you how to imitate some of the most iconic voices. Today's is a fun one. Sometimes when you're doing a voice, they can be subtle. There's always that question of, does this just still sound like me? Is it enough of an impression? Well, that is not a question any of you will be asking once you learn how to do this voice. Today, we're going to break down the voice of Venom. Venom has been voiced in animation by various voice actors, but today we'll be focusing on Tom Hardy's rendition of him in the live-action films. The voice has changed a bit from the first to the second film, and we don't know exactly how he'll approach it in the third film coming out later this year, but we'll be covering the common elements we hear across the films in this episode. Of course, there were some layering effects done on his voice, and it's also been reported that the late voice actor Brad Venable voiced some of the lines and sounds in the first film. So to do the exact voice would be a challenge, but we found a way to get pretty close. One quick disclaimer for this voice: it contains some vocal distortion. These are atypical vocal sounds that we want to make sure we're being careful to do in a safe and healthy way. If at any point you're experiencing pain or discomfort, stop trying the voice immediately and get with a voice teacher who can help you do this safely. You all know the drill. Figure out 6 components and you can figure out any voice. Let's break this voice down. Component number 1, the vocal cords. The vocal cords are an interesting component this time around. What if I told you that they're not actually doing anything at all? Well, that wouldn't be entirely true. I've noticed 2 distinct ways Venom speaks, sometimes with the vocal cords vibrating and other times not. But the primary vibration we hear is actually a growl. Growls are not made by the vocal cords themselves, but by some other components, which we'll talk about in a moment. Much of the sound is created by that growl, while the voice itself is essentially a whisper. If we started with a whisper, "We are Venom. We are Venom." Then we add the growl, "We are Venom. We are Venom." It sounds just like Venom. Now, there are some times, as I mentioned, where we definitely hear the vocal cords vibrating. For example, there's a moment in the first film where Eddie Brock refers to Venom as a parasite, and Venom demands that he apologize. He both vibrates the vocal cords and uses the growl for this line. Let's show what it would sound like with and without vocal cord vibration and with and without the growl. If it was just a whisper, it would sound like, "Apologize, apologize." If we spoke the line normally, having our vocal cords vibrate, it would sound like, "Apologize, apologize." If we go back to the whisper and add the growl, it sounds like, "Apologize, apologize." Then, adding the vibrating vocal cords back in, we hear the full voice. "Apologize, apologize." You can hear the true vocal cord vibration combined with the growl on that line. Some moments the vocal cords are activated, and sometimes it's just the growl. When we do have the vocal cords activated, there is a solid compression or connection of the vocal cords. As far as pitch, this is pretty variable, matching Venom's unpredictable personality. You might think, of course his pitch is low, listen to him. But once again, that low pitch you hear is coming from the growl we'll talk about later, not the vocal cords themselves. If you want the super low, guttural sounding Venom voice, you can simply whisper and not use the vocal cords at all. "Parasite, apologize, apologize." Component number 2, the larynx. With all voices, we have the choice of raising the larynx, lowering it, or keeping it neutral. For Venom, we will surprisingly be raising the larynx. For longtime viewers of the show, this might be confusing. Whenever we raise the larynx, a voice gets brighter and shriller. Whenever we lower the larynx, the voice gets darker and rounder and dopier, fuller. When we hear that low, deep sound of Venom, it would make sense to assume that the larynx drops. Dark sound, low larynx, right? But the larynx has to rise along with the tongue movements we're about to talk about. This is all part of the secret of the growl. So raise that larynx, yes, but you'll end up doing this automatically when trying the growl.
Eyes, lungs, pancreas. So many snacks, so little time.
Component number 3, the tongue. Okay, the moment you've all been waiting for. This is easily the most important component for this voice. It's the back of the tongue at work that makes the growl happen. For a more in-depth explanation of the growl, I highly recommend that you check out Voice Lessons to the World, episode 121. But to simplify, we can squeeze and clench the back and root of the tongue. We've done this with many of our voices, like in the Muppet series, for example. When you squeeze that tongue muscle, it brings the tongue and larynx closer together. Remember I said the larynx is going to rise? When that tongue root and back of tongue are engaged, they are pulled back. This pushes the epiglottis back as well. And when all of these things are pushed towards each other and we blow air through there, we get this rattling sound. This rattling is actually made by structures known as the arytenoid cartilages, as well as the epiglottis flapping around. So again, larynx goes up, tongue tenses and goes back, epiglottis goes back, arytenoid cartilages and epiglottis flap. And we get a growl. Now, some of you are going, I didn't need the anatomy lesson, Brendan. Just tell me how I do that. Well, step 1, tense the back and root of the tongue. You should feel like you're flexing a bicep with the back of your tongue, and
it should feel hard on the underside of your chin here.
Think
Kermit the Frog.
Then step 2, try clearing your throat while still tensing the tongue, like this. Step 3, try clearing your throat like that, but without the voice vibrating, like a whispered throat clear. Then, step 4, hold out that tongue-tensed, whispered throat clear. You got it!
But can we get something to eat now? Otherwise your liver, it's starting to look really, really good. And 𝗙•, the way I see it, we can do whatever we want.
Component number 4, the soft palate. While the tongue was the most important component, the soft palate is perhaps the least important. Remember that the positioning of the palate will determine how much the sound waves produced by the vocal cords resonate in the mouth or the nose. As I mentioned when talking about the vocal cords, oftentimes when doing this voice, there isn't much true vocal cord vibration. As such, it's a little less of a factor how much sound goes into the nose or not, since it's essentially a voiceless whisper we are making at the vocal cord level. When there is less true vocal cord vibration, we hear less of a difference as the resonance changes. I will say that I have a pretty balanced soft palate when I do this, not all the way up or all the way down, but you can feel free to not worry too much about this one and simply do what's comfortable.
You die, I die. Why would I do that? You are far too good of a match to throw away so soon. Plus, I'm starting to like you. You and I are not so different.
Component number 5, articulation. When we talk about articulation, we're referring to the way the character or person enunciates. How clear are those sounds, and are there any ways they say sounds that are specific to them? Venom actually has fantastic enunciation. Every sound is very clear. In fact, some sounds are almost over-enunciated, pronounced much clearer than most of us would normally do. For example, his T's and D's are very clear. Whereas we might say city, he says city. That T really pops. Chocolate is chocolate. Wind is wind. So make sure to pop those sounds in particular, and then all other sounds, make them as clear and precise as you can.
You want up? Well, why did you just say, your world is not so ugly after all? I'm almost sorry to see it end.
Component number 6, prosody. When we talk about prosody, we're referring to the melodic and rhythmic patterns in the voice. And this is really where the personality comes in. For Venom, there's of course that sinister quality to him, but at the same time, he's playful, bombastic, and even witty at times. So the vocal inflections and rhythms have to match this. Try to find that balance between terrifying, yet kind of childlike and fun at the same time. This means low, stretched out sounds when trying to be sinister, and then more pitch variety and faster bursts of speech when being more playful.
You come in here again. In fact, you go anywhere in the city, preying on innocent people, and we'll find you, and we'll eat both of your arms, and then both of your legs, and then we'll eat your face right off your head. Do you understand? Yes, so you will be this armless, legless, faceless thing, won't you? Going down the street like a turd in the wind. Do you feel me?
Let's recap.
Component number 1.
The vocal cords. Don't activate the vocal cords, aka whisper, if you want a lower, guttural sound. Activate them when appropriate.
Component number 2.
The larynx. Raise the larynx to help bring all the necessary body parts together to make the growl happen.
Component number 3.
The tongue. Clench the back and root of the tongue. In combination with the larynx rising, we'll have these structures come close together so that when we blow air through them, the epiglottis and arytenoid cartilages flap, giving us the growl sound.
Component number 4.
The soft palate. No need to worry too much about this component. Position the soft palate as is comfortable, allowing for as much or as little nasal resonance as feels right to you.
Component number 5.
Articulation. Over-enunciate all sounds, but especially T's and D's.
Component number 6.
Prosody. Bounce back and forth between sounding sinister as well as playful. There you have it, the voice of Venom. Thank you for watching New York Speech Coaching's Voice Breakdown, episode number 55. Be sure to check out future episodes of Voice Breakdown, the show where we
Are Venom. Eat you next time. Parasite? Apologize! Apologize!